essentially have the same goal at the end, which is to be happy, maybe have a family, but we're not against each other. We just simply live differently.
From Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, this is Techies Today, the Purdue Polytechnic podcast. I'm John O. User Experience Design, or UX design, is an approach to creating products, systems, and services that are effective and enjoyable to use. Human-centered design and development puts people at the center of the design process to ensure that technologies are easy to learn and use, that they are fun and enjoyable, and that people can achieve their goals in using these technologies. Abby Perez is a user experience engineer at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. In 2018, she earned a bachelor's degree in the Polytechnic's UX design program with a minor in psychology and a certificate in entrepreneurship and innovation. I spoke with Abby on 2 occasions and will share both of them today. The first was several years ago. Our UX design program was new, and Abby was one of the first students to choose it as her major. But before coming to the Polytechnic, Abby lived in the Philippines and also the Netherlands. Abby Perez tells us how she ended up here at Purdue and in UX design.
It's actually a very interesting story. The reason why I got into the U.S. was because my mom got a job offer while we were living in the Netherlands, and she had applied to Purdue initially when she was still living in the Philippines, but she couldn't afford coming here. So when she got offered a job here in West Lafayette, she was like, oh, maybe our kids might be interested in Purdue. And then I got introduced to Purdue Polytechnic with all the different opportunities and majors they had. And that's where I found UX design, and that's why I went into it. All the professors we have in this department are so great. They're always so open and interested in all the things that you're doing and making sure that they're mentoring you throughout the different processes, which is great for me because I didn't even know about user experience before I came to Purdue. Another thing is getting the opportunity to work with companies every semester in the experience studio. Having real life work experience really helps with how you learn within the process and things like that. So that was very helpful for me. I've been working with Hewlett Packard Enterprise since January as a user experience designer. And for this summer, they actually took me to Houston, Texas to work in the campus over there. And so I became a user experience designer over there and redesigned a whole website for one of their internal websites and was able to do a lot of experience in talking to users and actually designing wireframes and things like that. And I'm still working with them now, so that's great. I am the founder and president of the User Experience Design student organization, and I'm also part of the executive board for the Dean Student Leadership organization. I love to cook. I love to cook all cuisines, but mostly Filipino food.
And as a Purdue student, here was Abby's advice for high school students who are considering studying in our college.
Take advantage of all the resources that Polytechnic is giving to you. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I know that sounds really cliche, but this is a very safe place to make mistakes and grow as a student.
Abby Perez, before she graduated from Purdue. That interview was recorded on campus, outside, early in the fall semester a few years ago, and you might have heard the annual cicadas singing in the background. User experience designers work on technology in many forms, including virtual products like websites, mobile apps, software, and visual interfaces, tangible technologies that you can hold or touch, like the dashboard in your car, smartwatches, packaging, clothing, and more, and other things like retail environments and events. Hewlett Packard Enterprise was impressed with Abby's work during her internship, so they offered her a full-time job after graduation, which, by the way, is not unusual in Purdue Polytechnic, which requires internships or similar workforce activities in all our majors. Living in different countries while growing up gave Abby an interest in human psychology, an appreciation for adapting to new cultures, and an understanding that people everywhere, despite our differences, have the same fundamental goal to be happy. Abby Perez says her job at Hewlett Packard Enterprise mixes psychology with design.
We're geared towards servers and storage and data management and networking. Some services involved in that as well, but mainly servers and data storage, enterprise data storage. And I'm a user experience engineer, so I've been working there for a year and a half full time, but I've been an intern for 2 years before that. And thankfully for the Purdue Pathmaker program, I was able to work at HPE during the school year. So I was part-time during the school year, and then during the summer, I went to Houston for my first summer, and then Colorado Springs for my second summer.
How would you describe your job to people who work in different fields, to your family or your friends, for example?
So it's a mixture of psychology and design. I spend a lot of my time talking with customers and doing user research, understanding what their needs are, whether this is a new tool that we're making, so we're trying to understand what space we're trying to get into, or if it's a product that already exists and we're trying to test that as well. But I do a lot of UI work as well, so mock-ups and prototyping.
UI, user interface.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you had an internship with HPE while you were a student. How has your job as a full-time professional evolved? How is it different from your internship?
It opened a door to a lot more people than I thought. During my internship, I worked in a really tight-knit group of around 6 people, so 6 of us in a team. And now essentially I'm like a consultant for the company. And so I'm in my own team of quality life cycle engineers is what they call it. And I work with different products. And so they contract me without having to pay me since it's all internal. And so I have the opportunity to work with different products and different teams. So I get to meet a lot of new people all the time, which is really cool.
That's great. So here at Purdue Polytechnic, you majored in one of our newest programs, UX Design. And as you said, it's been a few years since you graduated. So how did your major set you up for real-world success in your job at Hewlett Packard Enterprise?
Oh, that's an awesome question because I can talk about that program forever. I think they set me up way more than I expected to. I felt very comfortable joining full time, especially when they're talking about this position where I'm the only UX designer in this team and I have to advocate for users. It's not really a set culture at HPE, or at least the team that I was going in. And I felt confident because of the major that I had at Purdue. I really value the program because they offer different tools that we can use, but they have us decide what tools works best for what we're doing. I think that's the best way to put it. So it wasn't like they were telling us specifically what we need to do and how do we approach problems, but we want to understand what the problem is or what area we're going into, and then we have different sets of tools and methodologies we can choose from in order to tackle them.
And all of these tools and methodologies are things that you first got some experience with as an undergraduate, right?
Yeah, definitely. As part of the curriculum, you explore different tools. So when I say tools, either these are things like prototyping tools like Sketch, Figma, so that's more UI design, or things like we even played with the HoloLens for AR. So if you're more interested in augmented reality, then we played on that as well. And then we learned and tried using lots of different user research methods. The basic ones are interviews and observations, but you can do body storming, contextual inquiry, so many different things. So you get really creative in order to get results that you think would be really valuable.
So again, while you were here at Purdue, you founded and were president of a student organization, specifically for your major, for user experience design. What I want to ask you, Abby, is how does leadership experience that you gained during college benefit you after you graduate?
It was very exciting to be able to do that in college because it felt like a safe place where I can try new things. Just like this organization, me and a few friends were like, hey, why don't we just start a student organization? We're talking with each other on Slack anyway. We might as well involve other people outside of the organization. Being able to do that and having the space to quote unquote fail and learn from it, that really helped a lot with me being comfortable trying new things at HPE.
So during our conversation a few years ago when you were a Purdue student, I asked you then what you would tell high school students, and you said that they should take advantage of every available resource, and as you just alluded to, also not to be afraid of making mistakes because Purdue is a safe place to grow as a student. So now that you've gained some professional experience, do you have any additional advice for either high school or college students?
I'd still stick with the resource one for the most part. I think that I miss that. Now that I'm away from college, I miss being able to talk to anyone in different majors, the professors, research opportunities. As far as advice, I think networking is also huge. It's played a really good part, at least here. I keep going back to Purdue. Actually, Professor Rashi in the Experience Studio reached out to me and asked if I can sponsor one of the projects. So being able to give back like that was also really nice.
Well, that's fantastic. And actually, it leads into my next question. So you now live and work in Colorado. Even though you're more than 1,000 miles from here, how has being a Purdue graduate helped you make connections in your work or in the world?
So during my time at Purdue, I actually joined a few student organizations. And so through that, I met a lot of people. And so outside of Purdue now, whenever I travel, I get to talk to them and see what they're up to. And at the same time, them reaching out if I have any advice for them for going into UX. So spreading the word about the program as well. So helping them out through there.
That's cool. So our guest is Abby Perez, a user experience engineer at Hewlett Packard Enterprise and a Polytechnic graduate. Abby, your family has lived in the Philippines and Netherlands and in Indiana. Now you're in Colorado. How has living in different countries and different cultures benefited you?
So growing up, I was born in the Philippines and then I left when I was 9 years old. I went to Singapore for 5 years, Amsterdam for 3 years, and then to the US. So at a young age, I had to force myself into this entirely new culture, different language, different people. And that kind of made me interested in psychology because I was really interested in different ways that people live. What I learned from there is even though we have different languages, different ways of doing this, we all essentially have the same goal at the end, which is to be happy, maybe have a family, but we're not against each other. We just simply live differently. And I think that's also how I got into user experience design, is because we want to empathize. We want to understand human emotions and how we work. It's not just, oh, how do we sell this product? It's how can this help you with your daily life or the work that you're doing? I love traveling. I love tasting all the different foods. That's how I learned the different cultures, being able to empathize to a wider range of people, I think.
Sure. What do you like to do when you're not at work?
Right now, I have gotten into taking care of houseplants. So I think the last time I counted, it was over 120, so it might be more now. But in my 2-bedroom apartment, I live in a jungle. And so when I'm not working, I spend a lot of time caring for them, being in the moment. It helps me ground me, be in the moment and stop running.
That's great. Is there anything that you were hoping that we would talk about that we haven't?
The UX program is great because One of the classes that students have to take for 2.5 years is the Experience Studio. And with that, you're in a team of UX students, undergrad and graduate students, and you're paired with a company for the entire semester. And that really helped me be comfortable talking with people in full-time work and transitioning over. It made me feel comfortable because I had that experience. And during that, you also have the opportunity to move up in a sense, because there's like product owners and I forget what they call it, just basically different levels of managers. So then you learn more about leadership skills. I heard actually someone graduated in UX recently who got a management role right off the bat. So that's awesome. And I think the Experience Studio really helped with that too.
And is that the kind of pairing that you're now offering from the opposite end, from the company representative position?
Yes, and I'm really excited. I'm really trying to loop Purdue back in. Every time we have Purdue interns, I'll talk to them too, so I love Purdue.
That's Abby Perez, a user experience engineer at Hewlett Packard Enterprise and a 2018 graduate from Purdue Polytechnic's User Experience Design program. Learn more about Abby and UX design by going online to polytechnic.purdue.edu/techies today and look for the hot links under episode 13. A video version of my recent conversation with Abby is there, and you can also see that recording we made outside by the fountain near Hovde Hall a few years ago. Next on the podcast, John Gates, Purdue's Vice Provost for Diversity and Inclusion, suggests that institutions like Purdue need to think about diversity differently.
We have a view of diversity as individuals that our institutions often don't have. Notice that nobody said diversity is race, nobody said gender, no one said sexual orientation or religion, nobody said it's about Black folk, none of that. I'm not interested in diversity for diversity's sake or because it's the right thing to do. I'm interested in leveraging diversity to drive value. In business, it's driving economic value, and higher education is driving educational excellence.
Techies Today is produced at Purdue University in Purdue Polytechnic's Office of Marketing Communications. Look for Purdue Polytechnic on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Tech Purdue. The podcast is on Twitter and Instagram at Techies Today. We welcome your email. Send it to techiestoday@purdue.edu. Our executive producer is Melissa Templeton. I'm John O, the podcast editor and producer. Thanks for listening. That's what's happening for Techies Today.